Good morning everyone, how you doing? It's Paul here from Unusual Things. We are back in Kensal Green Cemetery today and we are coming to find the final resting place of a gentleman by the name of Ossie Clark. Now you may or may not heard of him. He was a fashion designer, okay, and comes from Liverpool, and he had his career, started off, went to college, university and that sort of stuff, fashion design, and he grew big. And he had people such as Jimi Hendrix, the Beatles, so many other people who were his clients eventually. I will tell you about his life story in a moment. It's quite sad really what happened to him. I just want to make sure this camera's straight. Yeah, so I'll tell you about his demise and what happened to him in a moment. If you like this video today, please give it a thumbs up if you haven't done so already. Maybe subscribe to the channel, doesn't cost you a penny. This cemetery here, Kensal Green, is massive. It really is, it's huge. So much ground to cover. And, you know, thank God sometimes for little graces that help you out. I don't mean someone little called Grace, you know what I mean, that it looked great. You know, let's not go there. So yeah, we're going to have a look for his final resting place. I'll tell you all about him real soon, and leave your comments down below if you're into fashion and design and that sort of stuff and you've heard of him, because apparently people are still looking out for his clothes, his designs and things like that. You know, it's made a big comeback, even though he had a bit of a sad downturn, but I'll tell you about that now anyway. Raymond Ossie Clark, 9th of June 1942 to the 6th of August 1996, was a British fashion designer who was a major figure in the Swinging Sixties in London and the fashion industry in that era. Clark is now renowned for his vintage designs by present-day designers. He is compared to the 1960s fashion great Bieber and influenced many other designers including Yves Saint Laurent, Anna Sui and Tom Ford. Manolo Blahnik has said of Ossie Clark's work, "He created an incredible magic with the body and achieved what fashion should do, produce desire." Ossie Clark and Ossie Clark for Radley clothes are highly sought after and are worn by well-known models such as Kate Moss and Naomi Campbell. Ossie Clark was born on 9th of June 1942 to Anne and Samuel Clark in Lancashire, England. During the war, the Clark family moved to Warrington, where he was given the nickname Ossie. Ossie's mother, Annie Grace Clark, was in labour with Ossie for 7 days during an air raid in the Second World War. Anne had been expecting a girl and had no name picked out for her new baby boy. She let the midwife name him Raymond. Ossie was the youngest of 6 children: Gladys, Kay, Beryl, Sammy and John. Ossie and his brother John sang in the church choir at the St Oswald's Church in Winwick, where Ossie won awards for his vocal talents. Family and friends noted that from a very early age he was brilliant at doing anything. Young Ossie would make clothes for his nieces and nephews. He practiced tailoring and clothing on his dolls and designed swimsuits for the neighbourhood girls when not even 10 years old. Roy Thomas, the arts teacher at Ossie's secondary school, himself heavily involved in fabric art, recognised Ossie's creative flair and gave him a large collection of Vogue and Harper's Bazaar magazines. Clark pored over these magazines and absorbed the glamour and cutting-edge fashion. He quickly began to make his mark in the fashion industry with Alice Pollock's exclusive boutique, Quorum, featuring his designs in 1966. He had been introduced to Pollock at his RCA show by Quorum's backer at the behest of Hockney, and so taken with the young designer was she that she immediately decided to bring him in as a co-designer for Quorum. Ossie presented a collection of white and cream chiffon garments that sold very fast. Pollock wanted Clark's clothes to have more organic feel, and so commissioned Celia Birtwell to produce special textiles for the next collection. In this way, one of the fashion's most famous collaborations was born, with Clark designing clothes and Birtwell designing prints. The period from 1965 to 1974 is regarded as Clark's zenith, during which time he had many famous clients. In the late 1960s, Clark hit a rich vein from his flamboyant clothing range. The clothes press dubbed Ossie the King of Kings Road. Clark pronounced himself as a master cutter. "It's all in my brain and fingers, and there's no one in the world to touch me. I can do everything myself." Clark's great idol was the famous dancer Nijinsky, and his love of dance inspired his clothes to be free-moving and not to restrict the female form.
This style of dressing became quite popular in the 1970s thanks to a large part of popularity of Clark's clothing. Ossie Clark is well known for his use of muted colours and moss crepe fabric. He also designed shoes, paper dresses and snakeskin jackets. While Ossie and Alice were great at creating an image and drawing in the rich and famous, they were less successful at managing a business. Many garments were given away to celebrities or just disappeared from the shop. By 1967, Quorum, the partnership between Alice Pollock and Ossie, was deeply in debt, and Alice's financial backer, Mike Armitage, a stockbroker, decided there was little possibility of Quorum ever making a profit, and he and Alice agreed to sell Quorum to a large UK fashion house, Radley, run by Alfred Radley. Radley took over Quorum's debts and put the management onto sound bases. Alfred Radley was keen to maintain what made Ossie special, and so he continued to support Ossie's aspirations by developing the Ossie Clark brand and funding large annual fashion shows, expanding Quorum's retail business and distributing Ossie's dress to leading retailers around the world through the introduction of the Ossie Clark for Radley collections. In 1967, Clark presented his first fashion show under the patronage of Radley at Chelsea Town Hall for Pathé News. It was a seminal turning point in the history of fashion shows, which were never to be the same again. He also showed his first full collection in London's Berkeley Square. It was also the first British fashion show to feature black models. In 1968, Clark designed his first of many diffusion lines for Radley, Ossie Clark for Radley, that made his clothes available to a high street clientele. Going into the 1980s fashion, British fashion in particular turned towards the new punk rock craze. Clothing from Vivienne Westwood's shop on the King's Road became the most popular look, and one of Malcolm McLaren's scum t-shirt text went so far as to include Ossie Clark under the heading Hates. Clark's romantic flowing gowns were no longer in fashion. His fortunes declined to bankruptcy, and he largely stopped working commercially. Famously devoid of business acumen, he blamed his downfall on banks and the taxman's ruthless insistence on cashing in all his assets. His bitterness at this and a short-sighted determination to sit out the bankruptcy term, along with deep depression, meant he worked only on private commissions that were paid for by barter. A loyal band of famous clients and friends would order a dress and pay for it by loaning a holiday house in the Caribbean or paying for his sewing machine to be repaired. In 1984, he was persuaded by a friend to go back to work with Radley. Clark produced garments with shoulder details based on seashells, but according to his diaries, was then sacked by Radley the same year. A note written by Clark to the DHSS says, "I did not leave my position as a dress designer with Furwell of my own accord, as stated over leaf. It was put to me that as my designs weren't selling, they couldn't continue to invest in me, and I was given 2 weeks' notice on the 19th of October 1984. I wasn't offered a choice of continuing to work or not. I was fired. This version of events is backed up by a friend, the artist Guy Birch, who recalls that Clark told him Radley had found the complicated shell patterns impossible to make commercially. Although the 1980s were chaotic and nomadic, there were brighter sides to his life charted in his published diaries. In January 1978, he had met his second long-term partner, Nicholas Balaban, who was working as a barman in the Sombrero Club in Kensington. With Clark's encouragement, Balaban applied to Byam Shaw School of Art and went on to start his own highly successful fashion business, producing printed t-shirts for high street boutiques. Although most published accounts choose not to pay much attention to Clark's gay relationships, his sexuality was predominantly homosexual. Clark's continued erratic behaviour eventually led to the relationship collapse in 1983 and 1984, and his depression deepened even more as he obsessed over Balaban, trying to unsuccessfully to rekindle the relationship. Only with Balaban's death from AIDS in 1994 and a conversion to Buddhism did Clark finally begin to build a career and shake off the past. On the 6th of August 1996, Ossie Clark was stabbed to death in his council flat in Kensington and Chelsea, London, by his former lover, 28-year-old Italian Diego Cogoletto. In March 1997, Cogoletto was convicted of manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility and was subsequently jailed for 6 years.
So there's all the information there on Ossie Clark, and how sad for the way his life turned out. Again, through, well, it's no fault of his own, but addictions led to his demise in terms of his bankruptcy, his divorce with his wife, and obviously his own sexuality, which he had to deal with as well. So yeah, it's just a shame, isn't it? Anyway, been having a good look around, and I think I found it. Here we are. And as a designer, I suppose you wouldn't expect anything less, would you? I just come out a little bit. Raymond Ossie Clark. 9th of June 1942 to the 6th of August 1996, with love from his two sons Albert and George. And it says something at the bottom. I'll see if I can I can't quite make that out. I don't know whether it's Latin or something. I don't know. Maybe one of you guys, you're smarter than me. Maybe you can work it out there. But yeah, what a great design of a headstone there. Wow. So there we have the final resting place of Raymond Ossie Clark. And you know, what like I said earlier on, really, what a sad ending to his life, and just young again, so young. So bless you, Ossie. Amazing headstone there, which I'm sure, you know, with his design background, of course, he would have been pretty happy with that. So yeah, it just brings it home, doesn't it, every time we do these videos where these men and women, predominantly men usually, have these shortened lives, you know, for addiction problems or some sort of mental health issues, or I mean in his case, yeah, he got murdered by his lover. But you know what led to that, again, that's things that can't answer. I haven't looked into the actual cause of it. There might not even be any record of the cause of it, I don't know. But yeah, it's just such a shame, really. Anyway, thank you as always for watching. If you haven't done so already, please give it a little thumbs up if you liked the video today. And if you haven't done so already, maybe subscribe to the channel. Absolutely free, costs you nothing. And I will see you all on the next one. Take it easy.